Otome games have never been as plentiful as they've been during the Switch era. The genre really seemed to explode around 2021, and we've been spoiled for choices ever since. Unfortunately, an increase in quantity also comes with some downsides. With so many titles every year competing for attention in what is still a niche genre, it's easy for good games to slip through the cracks. In this video, I'm going to highlight 3 games that get my personal seal of approval and are less well known than the Otome titles that get the bulk of fan attention. Strap in everyone, we are going on another tour of the obscure that spans the heat of the desert to the glittering ballrooms of high society to the wintry snowfields of Edo, Japan. But this time, the showcase is pure quality instead of nearly forgotten oddities. Everybody, meet my problematic fave. The best way to determine if you can handle the crimson flower that divides Lunar coupling, a mouthful of a title that I'm going to shorten to Crimson Flower going forward, is to ask, are you a fan of either the Red River manga or anime series? If you are not familiar with Red River, ask yourself if you can tolerate the forced marriage aspect of Olympia Soiree, but with much worse gender politics. Like, a lot worse. I love Crimson Flower for the same reason Red River is so near and dear to my heart. The heady mix of steamy romance in a setting based on the ancient world with plenty of adventure, drama, and political intrigue on the side. But this game is not for the faint of heart. Nala is a young woman from the Kingdom of Rus. Women are considered a precious resource in the world of Crimson Flower because the female population has been whittled down by a disease called the rot. There is no cure, and the disease is so deadly that any woman who shows signs of infection is killed immediately to halt the spread. Unfortunately, women's numerical rarity compared to men makes them valuable in an economic way that doesn't translate to high status within the society. As bad as things are in Rus, they are even worse in the neighboring kingdom of Nasla, where the female population has been hit so hard by the rot, the men have resorted to raiding nearby countries, taking whatever women they can lay hands on back home as plunder. Nala ends up being taken during one of these raids, but when she arrives in Nasla, while the situation for the captives is bad, it's not quite as bad as it could be. Whereas in the old days, the hostages were given out to warriors as largesse, Toya, the newly crowned Naslan king, has a vision to make the country a little less barbaric. As one of his reforms, Nala and her fellow prisoners can select their own husband from among the Naslans. Toya's ultimate goal is to find a cure for the rot, so Nasla doesn't have to pillage the neighboring countries for unwilling brides anymore. And this is something Nala may be able to help him with, as she is the only woman who has ever contracted the rot and survived to tell the tale. I wondered many times the first time I played it if Red River inspired Crimson Flower, because the game's 3 main love interests map closely against the key male characters of Red River. Toya is an analog for Red River's protagonist, Prince Kyle, both forward-thinking rulers struggling against the weight of tradition to build a better future for their kingdoms. Surin, the aggressive military commander who's determined to force Nala into a marriage by hook or by crook, has a personality similar to Ramses, the Egyptian general who desires Red River's heroine Yuri and will not take no for an answer despite her wholehearted devotion to Prince Kyle. And Noel, Toya's acerbic advisor with a sharp mind and a deft hand at navigating sticky political situations, reminds me of Ilbani, who fulfills the same role for Prince Kyle. Circumstances force Nala into an unwanted marriage with one of these 3 men. But these aren't the only love interests. Depending on your choices, you can split off into several sub-routes where Nala leaves her original husband for one of the less important side characters. While I did enjoy a few of these sub-routes, overall, they're of lesser quality than the 3 main romance routes. I guess now would be a good time to mention that Crimson Flower began life as an R8 teen game on the PC. The port currently available on Switch and Steam is based on the PlayStation Vita version, where the explicit adult stuff was trimmed out completely. Even though there's no longer any hot, buttery corn happening on screen, Crimson Flower is still a very horny game, even in this tamer iteration. You can tell where the adult stuff was lifted out and a very enthusiastic makeout scene was swapped in. As As for why Crimson Flower is one of the less talked about recent Otome titles, there's many reasons. It was released in Europe and North America as a digital-only title and was barely advertised by its publisher. It's one of those games where you have to already know it exists to find it on a digital storefront. Then upon release, it got absolutely roasted for its rough localization. Whoever handled the English script went with what I suspect anyway is a very literal translation, to the point that the word choices can be detrimental to the game's tone. A prime example is during the hot and heavy makeout scenes, the word mucosa crops up way too many times. Mucosa. Mucosa. I think we've found the least sexy word in the entire English language, and they use it way too often during the impassioned French kissing scenes. Definitely a situation where you don't want to be hearing a word that sounds way too close to mucus. I won't say that the awkward word choices never took me out of the story, but I've read many old-school bodice ripper-style romance novels where the descriptions of physical intimacy are similarly unhinged. In a way, I felt right at home with the purple prose, but many people do not share my tolerance level. As flawed as it is, it just scratches a certain itch for me as a fan of steamy, lurid romances set in quasi-ancient world locations. With the Red River anime set to air soon, it feels like the right time to revisit this spicy hidden gem. Keeping with the theme of problematic steamy romance, our next hidden gem is Butterfly's Poison Blood Chains. Where Crimson Flower is rough around the edges, Butterfly's Poison is as refined and sophisticated as a silk kimono. Taking place in 1918, the story revolves around the Nomiyas, a family of great pedigree yet dwindling wealth. To reverse their rapidly depleting fortunes, the Nomiyas are desperate to get Yuriko, their only daughter, married off to someone wealthy enough to refill their empty coffers. Yuriko would rather not be traded off, but refusing her parents' will is simply not an option for her. Things go from bad to worse when Papa Nomiya is murdered during the grand party where Yuriko is meant to be paraded to the wealthy men of high society, effectively bringing the husband hunt to a screeching halt. Shortly after, her mother passes away when she finds her chambers strewn with bellflowers, sending the woman into such a state of terror that she suffers a fatal heart attack. Yuriko can't shake the suspicion that there is something more to her parents' death than random ill luck. And now she's under even more pressure to find a husband who can get what remains of the family out of debt. But the string of misfortunes makes her task even harder since no one with any status wants to marry into a cursed family, no matter how exalted their name. Yuriko, being the messy queen she is, compounds her troubles even further by only being attracted to the least appropriate men, like the childhood friend who's already engaged to another woman, or the much older butler who barely has a penny to his name, or her feckless brother, or the self-made millionaire who's all cash, no class. This game has many problematic elements, but they're not just there for crash shock value. Butterfly's Poison is an elegant and deliberately written Otome game. Every detail is purposeful, even ones that seem strange at first blush, such as the fact that Yuriko emits a floral aroma that everyone wants to get a sniff of when she's ovulating. This seems like a very WTF thing to bring up, but it's actually a clue to the overarching mystery. The 4 romance routes you can play from the beginning are primarily concerned with Yuriko's budding relationships with her inappropriate suitors. She doesn't really investigate her parents' deaths until the final 2 routes that only unlock after you clear the romance routes. But as part of each romance's climax, you do find out who was behind her family's misfortunes. The deeper mystery that's saved for the end concerns the why. Butterfly's Poison has everything I love to see in an Otome game. Nuanced characterization, carefully thought out thematic elements, and romances that are emotionally satisfying. Like Crimson Flower, this is also an R18 PC game that's had its explicit scenes stripped out. But while Crimson Flower is there to satisfy your inner book talk girly, Butterfly's Poison's problematic nonsense will tickle your inner VC Andrews fan. This is a rich text that deserves a much deeper dive one day. Butterfly's Poison is probably the least hidden of the gems in this showcase, as it was an often requested title for localization before its Japanese publisher unexpectedly announced that they were adding English text to its already existing Switch port, and it still gets a healthy amount of discussion within the fandom. Not as much as it deserves, though. As a digital-only release with barely any promotion from its publisher, it has most of the same discovery problems as Crimson Flower, making it an easy title for Otome gamers less deep in the hobby to miss. Fortunately, Butterfly's Poison isn't hampered by bizarre translation choices. The English script is very good. While I cannot speak to its accuracy, I can say it's pleasant to read, and it never feels like the story it's trying to tell is being strangled by the words used to convey it. It may sound like this Otome game is perfect, but there are a few things I don't like about it. The final route is not my preferred way to bring the mystery to a close. I understand why it ended the way it did, but I'm not a huge fan of who Yuriko ends up with in this story branch. I can't say I found Fujita, Yuriko's henpecked butler, a particularly appealing love interest either, although his route is rather interesting since Yuriko is the one who aggressively pursues him rather than the other way around. But I still consider this one a must-play if you can tolerate the taboo subject matter, because in a genre that often feels like it relies too much on safe formulas, Butterfly's Poison stands out as its darkest yet classiest title. If Crimson Flower and Butterfly's Poison sound a bit too spicy for your tastes, my final hidden gem is probably a bit more your speed. The other two are games that you definitely want to keep hidden under your mattress to avoid the judgment of your friends, but Winter's Wish, Spirits of Edo feels like a shoujo manga that you wouldn't be ashamed to admit to reading. The game centers around Suzuno, a girl living alone on the outskirts of a remote village. The other villagers call her a demon and shun her because she has the power to read people's emotions through psychic threads only she can see. Everything changes for her when two samurai arrive in her village to tell her she's been ordered to join a special task force that protects Edo by the shogun himself. Suzuno's powers are very valuable. The capital is threatened by the Blightfall, creatures made of dark energy that manifest when people's negative emotions reach critical mass. Since Suzuno has the power to see dark energy in the form of the black threads, it will make hunting the Blightfall that much easier. Her new teammates are the only people capable of destroying these monsters through the purifying snow sacrament. Well, it's a bit of a stretch to call them people exactly. In the world of Winter's Wish, inanimate objects can gain a soul and manifest a body, becoming form folk. The 6 love interests are special form folk who've had their memories and hearts sealed to gain the ability to perform the snow sacrament, which makes falling in love detrimental to the mission. Of course, with love off the table, that means none of these guys stand a chance against Suzuno's charms. On the surface, Winter's Wish seems like a pretty standard Otome romance game, and for the most part it is. It's a solid title that combines action, romance, mystery, and a dash of comedy without excelling at any of these elements. While not revolutionary by any stretch, it's entertaining from start to finish, and it does incorporate a few unique elements. Chief among them is the story's strong ties to the winter season. While there are multiple Otome games that take place in Edo period Japan, Winter's Wish has a unique aesthetic where the gentle snowfalls feel cozy and bright despite how cold it must be. Kinji, one of Suzuno's potential love interests, is an onagata, a kabuki actor who plays women's roles. As such, he's very refined and effeminate in the way he looks and acts, but the story never treats him as undesirable or the punchline of a joke. One of the underrated elements that I love to see in an Otome game is for the heroine to have a female friend. Suzuno has one of my favorite Otome besties in Miharu, a cheerful form folk woman who works at a tea shop. While Otome games will sometimes let the heroine's gal pal have a long-term committed boyfriend, it's unheard of for an Otome bestie to have a developing romance. Yet Miharu has this budding romantic tension with Kyoshiro, the squad's poker face captain, and it's so super cute I could just eat it up with a spoon. I know this game is never going to get a fan disc, but if it did by some miracle, what I'd primarily want from it is Miharu Kyoshiro's side stories. I just ship these two together so hard. While most of the story plays out in an unsurprising way, it does have a bold plot twist early in the final route that you will probably not see coming that has a profound effect on how the final romance plays out. While I don't think it pulls the plot twist off 100% effectively, you still have to respect the story for going in such a brave direction. As for why it has hidden gem status, despite the fact that it had a physical release in the English-speaking territories, I think it just slipped by most of the fandom. The translated version was released in 2023, which was a huge year for localized Otome games, both in the number of games that came out and how many major titles were competing for our attention. From what I remember, there just wasn't a lot of hype for Winter's Wish. It wasn't a title the fandom was clamoring for at the time, and to seal its fate as an overlooked gem, it got one of the worst release windows possible. Winter's Wish released in mid-May of 2023, just a few weeks before the biggest Otome game of that year. I'm talking about Jacques Jean, a title that had a massive amount of hype behind it and had garnered interest beyond the normal Otome audience since it was the brainchild of Tokyo Ghoul manga artist Sui Ishida. Radiant Tale, another hotly anticipated game, followed in July, giving Otome gamers barely enough time to finish Jacques Jean before moving on to that. With so many heavy hitters released during that long, hot Otome summer, poor Winter's Wish just melted into obscurity. Winter's Wish is one of my favorite B-tier titles, and I think its hidden gem status just goes to show that even in a small genre like Otome, even good games run the risk of getting lost in the shuffle. While the selection feels huge compared to what it was a decade ago, we're still a tiny niche where the number of games we get in a whole year is on par with what some genres get in a single month. And those are 3 of my favorite hidden gem Otome games. If you like this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I cover all sorts of fun stuff related to Otome, romance, and girly pop gaming here on Otome Beat. The channel practically blew up after my last video. I think I was hovering around 200 subscribers and now I'm over 1,000. I'm so grateful to everyone who's listened to me ramble about Otome games. When I started this channel in January, I never thought I would get this far or even still be posting 6 months later. I've been recovering from a minor surgical procedure that still managed to kick my butt. The recovery really slowed me down, so all this has caught me completely flat-footed, and I still need to come up with a really cool 1,000 subscriber special for you all. Tell me in the comments if you've played any of these games and what you thought about them. Feel free to share your favorite underrated gems too. Well, that's all for now. This has been Otome Beat. Thanks for watching.